Jaguar Wright, why hasn't she been sued? Should she be? And what would happen if she were? Jaguar Wright. If you're not familiar with the name, you might wonder if she's a sleek, high-performance sports car that purrs around corners. But nope, she's not part of the British automotive lineage. She's a singer, songwriter, and more recently professional bomb thrower in the music industry. For the past couple of years, she's been on a tear, publicly airing out the dirty laundry of various celebrities with a precision that would make your neighborhood gossips look like rookies. The real head scratcher is, why hasn't Jaguar Wright been sued yet? And maybe a better question is, should she be? Let's break this down, shall we? The Jaguar's roar, who is she? And what has she been saying? Before we dive into the juicy legal stuff, it's important to know who Jaguar Wright is and why so many people seem to be keeping an anxious eye on her social media. Wright first rose to prominence in the early 2000s as a soul singer affiliated with Philadelphia's neo-soul movement. She has worked with The Roots, Jay-Z, and a handful of other big names. All was well, and she seemed poised to be a regular fixture in the music scene. Fast forward to 2020, and Wright suddenly re-emerged, not with a new album, but with a megaphone full of accusations, insider gossip, and some serious tea about the personal lives of fellow musicians. We're talking allegations of misconduct, shady business dealings, and personal feuds. Names like Mary J. Blige, Common, Diddy, and The Roots are just a few of the celebrities she's blasted. At this point, most people would be preparing for a legal tsunami of cease and desist letters, libel lawsuits, and courtroom showdowns, but here we are years later, and not a single lawsuit has surfaced. Why? Why hasn't Jaguar Wright been sued? Let's be honest, if Jaguar Wright worked in your office and kept spilling this level of gossip about coworkers, you'd expect HR to step in with a stack of legal papers as tall as a filing cabinet. So why have her targets in the music industry kept their lawyers on a leash? There are a few plausible explanations. 1. She's not worth the hassle. In legal terms, the people Wright is attacking have a lot more to lose than she does. Take someone like Diddy, his net worth is reportedly in the hundreds of millions. Does he really want to file a lawsuit against Jaguar Wright, someone with considerably less wealth and public clout? Even if Diddy were to win, he could end up looking like the schoolyard bully who decided to pummel a kid half his size. A courtroom battle could give Wright even more of a platform, and let's face it, she'd likely use the legal proceedings as fresh material to keep spilling more tea. In other words, it's just not worth it for these celebrities to risk the public spectacle. 2. Truth is a defense. Lawsuits for defamation hinge on one thing: whether the allegations are false. The truth is an absolute defense to defamation, and perhaps the reason Wright hasn't been sued is that the folks she's speaking about don't want to go to court and have these allegations scrutinized. Maybe, just maybe, there's enough truth in what she's saying to make suing her a risky gamble. Nobody wants a discovery process that might uncover even more damaging information. 3. The judgment proof factor. Even if a lawsuit were to succeed, it's possible Wright simply doesn't have enough assets to make suing her financially viable. Winning a lawsuit is great, but if the person you're suing can't pay damages, all you've got is a very expensive legal victory and a collection of court transcripts to frame on your wall. 4. Suing could backfire. In today's world, litigation can quickly backfire. Wright has a dedicated following of supporters who hang on her every word. If a big-name celebrity sues her, they could end up fanning the flames, giving her more exposure and making themselves look defensive. There's a saying in PR, sometimes the best response is no response. And perhaps for the celebrities Wright has taken aim at, keeping quiet is their best move. Should Jaguar Wright be sued? Now, the big question, should she be sued? There are a few compelling arguments for why someone might want to take Wright to court. She's publicly accused people of some serious stuff: sexual misconduct, professional misbehavior, and generally being all around terrible humans. These are no small claims, and they can have real consequences for the reputations and careers of those she's targeting. The case for suing. Damage control. At some point, the constant chatter from Wright could start to erode someone's public image. Even if the allegations aren't true, the where there's smoke, there's fire mentality can set in. A lawsuit could potentially set the record straight. Precedent setting. If Wright continues her verbal rampage unchallenged, it might send a message that she can say whatever she wants without consequences. Suing her could create a precedent that stops her or others from following in her footsteps. The case against suing. The Streisand effect. Ever heard of the Streisand effect? It's when an attempt to hide or suppress information only serves to draw more attention to it. Suing Wright could end up giving her more of a platform, drawing even more eyes and ears to her stories. Feeding the beast. Let's be real, Wright thrives on attention. Suing her might just give her the oxygen she needs to keep going. Imagine the Instagram live she would host during a lawsuit. Each court hearing would be recapped with dramatic flair, and before you know it, we'd all be sucked into a months-long saga with Wright as the star. The pros and cons of suing Jaguar Wright. Let's weigh the pros and cons like any good risk manager. On one hand, there's a lot to gain from holding someone accountable for what may be considered reckless or damaging statements. On the other hand, there's a whole lot of potential downside. So here's a breakdown. Pros of suing Wright. Reputation repair. A lawsuit, if won, could go a long way in proving that Wright's statements were false helping repair any damage done to the celebrity's reputation. Setting a legal example, suing right could set a precedent that you can't just say whatever you want without facing consequences. Financial restitution: in theory, winning a lawsuit could lead to financial damages being paid, though whether Wright has the money to pay up is another question. Cons of suing Wright: publicity frenzy: suing could give Wright an even larger stage to air more dirty laundry. She's already made a career out of being outspoken, and a high-profile lawsuit could turn her into a media sensation. The Streisand effect: trying to silence Wright could have the opposite effect, making her even more vocal and drawing more attention to her claims. Costly litigation: lawsuits aren't cheap, and even a winning case could cost a fortune in legal fees, especially if it drags on for months or years. Risk of exposure: if any of Wright's claims have a grain of truth, a lawsuit could backfire, uncovering embarrassing or incriminating details during the legal discovery process. Final verdict: should they sue? In the courtroom of public opinion, it's still a toss-up whether suing Jaguar Wright is a good idea. On one hand, it could serve to defend the reputations of the celebrities she's targeted. On the other hand, it might just give her more material for her next Instagram live. Maybe, just maybe, the reason Wright hasn't been sued yet is because the people she's targeted know that a lawsuit could be like throwing gasoline on a fire. Sure, you might win the legal battle, but in the process, you could lose the war of public perception, and that's a risk most celebrities just aren't willing to take. In the end, it might just be best for the Diddy's, Commons, and Mary J. Bliges of the world to keep their lawyers on speed dial, but their lawsuits in the drawer. After all, sometimes the best way to deal with a roaring jaguar is simply to let it run out of gas.